Hello and welcome to JackTalk, where we take a look at things going all around the world, including a new Senate bill, updates on everything happening in Palestine, as well as a look into the NBA regular season. All this and more, right here on JackTalk.
Equity and inclusion offices across Texas University are in jeopardy of being wiped out beginning spring semester. Texas Senate Bill 17 was passed on June 17th and will be put into effect January 1st. The bill states that the governing board of a university shall not establish or maintain a DEI office, hire or assign an employee to perform the duties of a DEI office, or give preference on the basis of race, sex, and ethnicity. Lawmakers in support of this bill believe that DEI programs force faculty and students to adopt certain political beliefs that they no longer believe and that are no longer, they believe that the programs are no longer effective or needed. People who oppose this bill believe that the students who are in underrepresented groups will feel unwelcome and it'll undo the efforts made to correct past discrimination. So I'm curious on y'all's take on this and how you think it will affect SFA as a whole.
Personally, I believe it's taking a big part of who SFA is. You know, this is I'd say our campus is diverse, and to take an entire program away that focuses on diversity, I think the effects will be detrimental.
And I also, to kind of piggyback off of that, we also have a full diversity, equity, and inclusion office, the Office of Multicultural Affairs. Yes. Everything up on the third floor. I mean, that is what they're that's what they speak for. There's a full mural inside the student center wall of what it means to be DEI. We offer classes to be DEI certified, and so I definitely think it's going to be a huge part in taking that away from SFA.
Yeah, I think it will definitely play a big impact, but I think the timing here makes sense because I believe a few months ago the court just struck down affirmative action at Harvard because they were discriminating against Asians. So I see that kind of belief going on. It's like, okay, DEI is kind of a semblance of that too, and we need to get rid of that because it's still a version of discrimination because we're preferring other races over other races in the same way. So I think the timing makes sense. I'm not sure what type of impact it's going to have exactly, because if you say, for example, let's say Asian Americans, for example, they don't really see, let's say, that many Asian teachers, that many Asian people on their campus, but yet they excel pretty well across the country. So I'm not sure what effect it will actually have. It's going to be interesting for sure.
I think the thing that kind of makes me the most upset about it is just the activities that go along with it. So I know I always really enjoy MLK Day parade and Day of Service, and that wouldn't happen anymore because there would be no Office of Multicultural Affairs to fund it or to host the activity. And so I just think the different activities and things that go on to honor holidays like that, I would hate to see that go.
So I've actually spoken to some people within the DEI office, and they said there is technically a way around that.
Okay.
It would still be the DEI office, but it would not be called the DEI anymore. It would still be, they would still push all of those beliefs that the DEI offers, like the DEI training, stuff like that, but they would just not call it the DEI office. And they would celebrate Martin Luther King Day, stuff like that. And there's also a bunch of different clubs and organizations on campus, like the Organization of Asian Excellence, stuff like that, the LULAC, which is a Latin American organization. So there's definitely still a lot of representation for all these different groups. I just think there's the hub that they all go to is going to be taken care of.
So, but what does that mean for hiring restraints? You know, that means certain professors won't be hired, you know, they're because of race. How does that affect colleges as a whole? That some colleges are underperforming because of lack of professors, and now we're taking out a different option as a whole. How do we feel about that?
Well, I know a lot of people were worried about, like you said, people who get employed throughout the DEI office, and A&M has already they've reassigned all their DEI employees. And so what I do think is good about that is that they're not getting fired. It's they're getting reassigned and they're still getting jobs, because I know that's whenever I heard about it, that's what I was worried about, that people would lose their jobs, you know.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's important where the resources go to whoever's getting employed. If it's going to what they feel like is more productive things, then it may not be that much of a big deal. But if people are losing jobs, then we have to take into account, are people losing jobs? Should they lose jobs? Should they not lose jobs? So you have to look into that as well. But it's definitely going to be interesting in how they handle that issue.
Yeah, and I'm also really curious as to see what kind of what these organizations clubs do to kind of get around that thing. But I also kind of want to switch gears here and talk about why they're getting rid of why they made the bill to get rid of the DEI office. You know, they said they think it's forcing political views on certain students, and I've not ever thinking about that before. I could kind of see where they're coming from. Like, it makes a little bit of sense to me. What about you?
I agree to some extent. I feel like that the DEI bill or DEI as a whole was more left-based, and the people that made the bill came from the right. So I could see why the original basis of education is just to learn, not to force political views or to accept a certain type of people or anything like that. The purpose of school is to learn. So to that fact, I can see why the bill was made.
I think that I do slightly disagree, just because if you do disagree with the goals of that organization, you're not forced to participate in the organization. And I think it's good that then each person has their group that they're a part of. And you know what I mean? Like, you're not forced to attend the Office of Multicultural Affairs events or any other organizations. And so I think it's good that they have, their group, their activities, and so do, a bunch of other people,
No, I definitely agree. And it's going to be, like I said, very interesting to see how everyone kind of handles that. But stay with us, because when we come back, we are going to talk about all that is happening between Palestine and Israel. JackTalk will be right back. Welcome back to JackTalk. The talk on the war between Palestine and Israel has been going viral. Israel's ground forces are expanding their activity in Gaza. Chief Military Spokesman Daniel Hagari said the IDF is acting with great force to achieve the objectives of the war. Health officials in Gaza are reporting that over 7,000 people have been killed and neighborhoods have been reduced to rubble. The United Nations has warned Israel that the ground invasion will cause more civilian casualties and that they may be responding to the war crimes of Hamas with war crimes of their own. Last Friday, the UN General Assembly voted for a humanitarian truce in Gaza. The U.S. voted against the truce after an amendment that would have commended Hamas and demanded the release of hostages was not approved. What do you guys think?
So personally, I do stand with Israel. Israel is America's ally, so that makes sense in my opinion. But the atrocities that have been happening on both sides have been honestly sickening. Is that the right word to use?
Yes, I would definitely agree with that. And it's also kind of interesting. I'm going to let you guys get your, because I have something, I have kind of a gear shift, so go ahead.
One thing that you just said that stood out to me was like the casualties on both sides have really been harmful. I saw something online earlier today that like this whole conflict has created kind of like hate towards Israel and Palestine, like conjointly. Like, people are angry about like both situations, and I don't think that's fair to either of them. Like, I just like hate to see a situation be bad for both groups of people.
No, I totally understand.
Yeah, it's always bad when, civilians get caught in the crossfire between wars between states and all of the destruction that's been going on. But I think what's important to understand is that while Israel's response wouldn't make sense, because in the same way, it's like their attack was basically 10 times worse proportionally as 9/11. So the response makes sense for me. But at the same time, you have to consider Palestine's situation and think, and I'm not sure how that's going to pan out. I don't see a situation where there's going to be two independent states right now. I see either one side's going to take over or the other one's going to take over. And it looks like Israel, just based on power alone, will take over. And it's looking like a lot of people are going to be killed, and that's just terrible.
No, and I definitely agree. And to CJ's point, Israel is a ally of the U.S. When do you foresee the U.S. stepping in?
Personally, we've already stepped in with funding. I want to say we've given certain like help with airstrikes and things of that nature. But to say America's going to step in by like deploying troops and things of that nature, I don't see us stretching that far. If so, maybe a long time from now, like a long time, if the conflict were to continue.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that, especially because the shift between support for Israel is like drastically different over here, especially in places like London as well, where you see these huge protests going on, like Free Palestine and things like that. So I don't see the U.S. have much leverage, at least from a citizen standpoint, to be like, okay, we're just going to drop troops down in Israel and help them out. I don't think that's going to happen quite yet.
I was going to say, I'm sorry. I read on CNN that most of the yesterday, I want to say, the Al Shifa hospital was captured by the Israeli forces, and I want to say doctors said that they had no power, no electricity. They had babies in aluminum foil. Like there was more. They had to build. Doctors were building morgues for patients. So the entire situation as a whole on both sides is horrible.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Ella, did you have something to add?
Yes, to add to your question about the U.S. getting involved, I do think it's like important for the U.S. to get involved whenever our national security could be jeopardized. Because right now, them getting involved is internationally, and so it's, I guess I would say, safest for U.S. citizens at that point because there's no attacks like nationally. And so if in the future there were threats or something to the U.S., that's when I think it would be important for us to get involved further.
Personally, between reading on CNN and just staying up to date with just the different facts, as I said, they did go into the hospital, but the process of getting into the hospital was extremely dangerous. Doctors reported hearing explosions and bombings outside the hospital, and while they were trying to rescue people inside, right? And not to mention, the Israeli government has stated that Hamas had weapons in the hospital, which is connected to a school, and Gaza is stating that they didn't, right? So it's just a lot of confusion on both sides, and from an American citizen standpoint, I just don't know what is true and what's not true.
And one rumor that I've kind of been hearing circulation is with the presidential race about to come in town, it is possible that Biden may declare that we're going to war so we can stay in office for a little bit longer. What do you guys think about that?
I think that's heinous. We're to use diplomatic tactics to use diplomatic tactics in wartime. I think that's an egregious act. These are people's lives at stake, children, civilians, legitimate civilians, that I don't believe politics should take part in that. I would want the best and most reasonable decision for both sides so the loss of life can stop,
I got you.
And Xavier, did you have something to add too as well?
Yeah, I was going to say that I think when it comes to the diplomatic process behind it, they are, at the end of the day, they're going to do what they feel like works for their campaign. Like, for example, you had Nikki Haley was saying that we should be fighting for Israel and things like that. So I think that's going to play a role soon, too.
I believe politics as a whole is just split between the two sides because you have citizens protesting, and, college students protesting that Gaza, we should be freeing Palestine, but America fights for Israel. So
Yeah,
I'm kind of torn.
I totally agree with and hear what you're saying. When we come back, a new House Speaker has taken the oath, and we will also take a look at the new NBA season. We will be right back on JackTalk.
Welcome back to JackTalk. The new House Speaker has taken his oath this past Wednesday. CJ, I believe you have the latest on that.
Yeah, House Speaker Mike Johnson has started his first plan of action after taking the position a little over a week ago, and he's already making enemies in politics. Johnson and the House approved a bill to send over $14 billion in aid to Israel to fund airstrikes and further strengthening Israel's Iron Dome. Johnson's bill comes after President Biden's bill for $100 billion was denied by the House of Representatives. President Biden stated that the aid would be divided between Israel, Ukraine, and the citizens of Gaza. Johnson publicly stated his disapproval of aid for Ukraine. The Democrat-led Senate wasn't pleased with the House denying their bill just to send another back and only focusing on one group of people. How do you guys feel about our politicians, deciding who and who doesn't get aid?
That's going to be a touchy subject no matter what side you are on. If it kind of goes into I believe it's who is it? Maybe Kant's golden mean, where we're talking about media ethics at the moment right now. But doing the most good for the most amount of people. That's
right.
That's what you're supposed to do as, honestly, any group of people. If it's politicians, actors, whatever it is, you're trying to please the most amount of people.
So, Ella, how do you feel personally?
You said that they're sending aid to Israel.
Israel only.
But then, was it the Gaza territory as well, or just Israel?
Just Israel.
Okay.
Right. President Biden wanted to spread it around, but Mike Johnson, the House of Representatives, it's Republican-led, right?
Okay.
they specifically want aid for Israel. That's it.
Okay. I do totally agree with you that it is doing the most good for the biggest group of people. And that issue is very prevalent right now. And, like, it's sad to see all the hostages and all the civilians being hurt. And so I do think that is a good cause to send aid to.
I do think when it comes to sending aid and you're sending considering sending aid to both sides of a conflict, that can get really dicey, especially historically with the U.S. when they did that in World War I, just sending aid to everybody, like sending aid to the Allies, but then also pushing the Germans out the way, and that creates a conflict with another nation. So that could also happen if Biden's thing were to go through where he wants to send aid to Gaza as well, because they'd be like, why are you sending aid to them when Israel's attacking us? So that can create another source of conflict there. And I'm interested, so I can understand why they would want to deny that. And also on the side of Israel is more of our ally, so it would just make logical sense for them to do that. But it can get very interesting how that might play out.
To that point, right? Mike Johnson, our current House Speaker, he denied aid to Ukraine as a whole. He believes that conflict has nothing to do with us, you know? And I believe the politicians are, how can I say this? They're playing their own role, you know? Because at the end of the day, we're all going to sit here. So Mike Johnson just got into the position of House Speaker, and they were already threatening a governmental shutdown, right? And that was only because the Democrats and the Republicans couldn't agree on who and how much aid to give.
But you know what? I almost think that's a good thing for the government to have somebody from both parties kind of disagreeing on these things, because you don't want all left or all right. It's going to just make sure everything's going smoothly. Like I said, it's the most good for the most amount of people. So I definitely do think while there could be some little choppy situations between big stories like this, I definitely think it's a good thing for this to have.
So, you know, Mike Johnson did just come into power. How do we feel about him as a person? Like, as a House Speaker, he is coming out of Louisiana, I want to say, and this is his first time in such a big role. He's already making waves, you know.
Yeah.
One thing that stood out to me about him was how, like, little kind of, I guess, recognition he had, and just, like, a lot of people weren't familiar with him, so I feel like that could be a disadvantage in the future for him.
Gotcha. Let's switch gears here a bit. I believe you have the latest on the new NBA season.
That is correct. The NBA in-season tournament tipped off November 3rd, and many people don't know how it works, so let's break it down a bit. 30 NBA teams were divided into 6 groups of 5. They will face each team in their group once, and whoever has the most wins advances to single elimination knockout rounds with 2 wildcard teams. The semifinals and championship game will be played in Las Vegas, and the winner gets a $500,000 prize. Tournament games are played on Tuesdays and Fridays. And I think, from what I've heard, the commissioner, Adam Silver, said they were taking more of they took this from soccer kind of. So I think the interesting thing about it how is this going to add to certain players' legacy? Are they going to care about winning the NBA Cup? And because as of right now, that a lot of players don't even know what's going on. I know Damian Lillard said he wasn't sure what was going on. And another player said they didn't know what was going on. So I think as it progresses, it might become more serious and people are going to be looking at their legacy like, did I win an NBA Cup? And I think that could be pretty interesting.
I also think it's an odd thing to reward a professional basketball team who's making millions of dollars with a $500,000 grand prize. I mean, I get it, that is a lot of money, but like you're also making all of this money as a professional organization anyway. I don't really see what the point of me caring a little bit more about this in-season tournament is, you know? Because I mean, yes, you have you have like the championship, but you also still have the NBA Finals, and I think adding a second trophy, I just think that's a little bit redundant.
Did you guys see their courts?
Yes,
Did you
and
see
they're
how
terrible.
They look so bad. The color contrast is horrible. Like, it
Terrible.
hurts my eyes.
But I think the players could see, I know Damian Lillard talked about the energy being different in the crowd, knowing there was a tournament going on, the court looking different. So I think it could add a little something to it, even though, it's not as big as the NBA Finals, like how soccer has Champions League and such.
That's what I was going to say. I think what could be beneficial from this is that it's going to bring in a lot more viewers and a lot more, like, interest, kind of, just because people will want to follow up and see who's winning, like,
It's
the
another
updates.
trophy to win.
And so I think that'll bring in more
It's another trophy.
viewers.
I'd-
But
I'd
that
be
goes.
interested in a
But that
trophy.
goes back to my thing. Is like, why are this is just inflation of trophies? Like, why? If any.
It's 2.
Okay, but like the whole point of a regular season in any sport is to win the championship, and I just don't agree with it. I mean, I get if it was maybe going for a good cause, but this is just the winner of just gets a $500,000 check.
I think it's more of a marketing thing because when it comes to the regular season, there's 82 games. a lot, especially with a lot of players like being injured and going on load management, it just makes the people who are watching more excited for the regular season because not many people care outside of the big teams, and this includes all 30 teams. So whether you make the playoffs or don't make the playoffs, you get to get involved. Those teams that don't make the playoffs, their fans get to see their team possibly win something. So I think
And
just a
every
marketing
game goes to their actual in-season record, right? Or am I wrong?
Not every game. I believe the championship games don't go to their. regular
Okay, so
season
just
But
every
this
other.
tournament does affect their record, right?
Yes.
But see, and that's the thing. Like, that's just another opportunity for you to lose your key players. Like, this is not. I mean, yes, this is a good opportunity to make some money, but like I said, it's not what you're going for. Like, that's not the big goal. If you lose the in-season tournament, who cares? You still have the NBA Finals. So I just don't. I definitely think there was a different way to go about this.
Yeah.
So personally, I'm a huge Dallas Maverick guy, and I do hope they go all the way in the bracket and in the postseason. Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, both key players on that team, they're definitely going to be dangerous. But even if the Mavericks don't win it all, I can always refer back to the fact that the Texas Rangers are the World Series champions. And thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Jack Talk. Until next time, Jack some Jacks.